My guy Jay Crispin coming in with a question on our Instagram page. Last week we put out a request on our IG story. And he asked me this one, save it for this week's show because it didn't fit in last week. He said, is the spread for the ECU game, Eastern Carolina game, correct? Michigan is currently a 36.5-point favorite. I'll get back to that question in a second, but let's take a quick glance at the early schedule. That's surprising. 36 points, you think, okay, that's no big deal. That's probably a big deal, but not, that's probably not anything Michigan's going to struggle to overcome. But this East Carolina team was pretty good last year. They went 8-5 and made a conference championship game in a Group of 5 conference. So I think it's a little surprising. I think it goes to show you how good that the sportsbook think that Michigan is. Usually you only get these 30 and 40 and 50-point spreads when you're facing a team like UConn last year, who was like 3-9 or something like that the year prior. After East Carolina, it's UNLV, it's Bowling Green, it's Rutgers. One of the weakest starts of a season, in Michigan football history, outside of maybe even last year. But outside those top three, you still have a team with a winning record in East Carolina. But outside those top three, then you go to Rutgers, then you go to Nebraska, to 4-8 bottom dwellers last year. It should be a cakewalk. You get 5 games in the month of September, which doesn't happen very often for any college football team. It will for almost the entire college football universe this season. So I ask you guys this question. They did it last year. It's funny. Jack and I put the number last year in August into September at 200 points, 50 points a game. Michigan hit it exactly on the number. They scored 200 points exactly in 4 games in the month of September last year. The record, at least in the modern era, I didn't go back into the 50s or prior to that I could find was 208 points in 4 games in the 2016 season. I had a 60-point banger in there somewhere. Where was it? 63-3, 51-14, 45-28. 49-10 in 2016. Last year, though, it was 51-7, 56-10, 59-0, and then 34-27, a surprising close game in the 4th game against Maryland. So let me know what you guys think. Can Michigan be averaging 50 points a game on offense after their 5 games? Over, U for under. I'll pin this comment below the video. Go down and reply to my pinned comment. Give me an over or a U for under. Help you out thinking about that a little more as you're kind of contemplating it going down there. East Carolina, UNLV, Bowling Green. I don't know about 36-point spread. That's a big one. I'm going to go like 45-10. I think we did these predictions somewhere, Jack, so people can go back and fact check me on these. UNLV, I don't know what I'm saying there, 75-0. Bowling Green, I'm going to say 56-7. Rutgers, who knows, 78-0, and then Nebraska probably about 45-20. I'll say on that one. So I think yes, I'm going to answer yes on that one. Look at that schedule. It is going to be a hell of an explosive September. Michigan will be into their 6th game before you even have to really think about what this program is going to have to do to compete in a game. All right, let's jump into some of my Michigan football burning questions. Got a little itch on my arm there. Feeling good. And we're going to dive into some of your questions. I've got Instagram and Twitter questions coming up on today's show. Did want to remind you, the Don T-shirts are back in stock. If you guys haven't seen them yet, I'll talk about more on the show here. It is just the Don 7. We sold, hundreds plus of them over the spring, and now we're bringing them back in store in stock. Chatsports.com/down7. That link is down below in the comments and the description. Click on it. It redirects you to our merch store. Get the shirt, the Don, and rock it all season long. Stephen Mers, at my man Mers, my boy on Instagram. He is asking, does M Power, which is one of the Michigan collectives, does it compete with the SEC-type NIL deals, or does Michigan still have a ways to go? The one interesting thing this week that hadn't been said or talked about much, at all was, what's his name? Michigan's athletic director, whose name I'm just, Maternity Ward, Warde Manuel, as we're filming these live, guys. We don't have notes. I don't have show. Warde Manuel came out and officially the last few days said he supports NIL deals. He wants Michigan to be leading the way. Michigan's been doing a tour all over the country. They've been in Chicago. They've been in L.A. They've been across the East Coast. Jim Harbaugh and Chris Partridge and all kinds of Michigan football coaches and staffers talking to alumni, talking to big-time donors. I think the biggest disconnect is, well, we're big-time donors. Where do we send our money? Do we send to Michigan? Or do we send to one of these collectives? Are these collectives, are they verified? Are they going to use the money for the players? Are they going to keep it themselves? And I think what Warde Manuel is at least trying to do is saying, look, still give to Michigan, but if you want to give these collectives, here are the 3 that we've officially partnered with. There's this one, there's the Valiant Group, and one other one. go ahead and give them their money. We will make sure it ends up, in the hands of students. Michigan's not going to do the pay-for-play game where it says, hey, sign here and you get this much money. But what they are doing as good as anybody, maybe better than anybody in college football right now, I think is saying, look at Donovan Edwards, look at JJ McCarthy, of course, look at Blake Corum, Zach Zinter, Trevor Keegan, guys who could have went pro and came back, got a couple $100,000 from the One More Year Fund. Michigan's leading the way. I think a high-level starter returning for a fourth or fifth year is much more valuable than any single recruit you're going to get. So Michigan's doing it the right way. Hopefully Warde Manuel isn't a little sniveling little liar and just talking, blowing smoke up our butts, and he's actually putting his money where his mouth is, maybe his money himself, but if not, pushing Michigan's big donors like me towards these collectives. Guys, we launched an Instagram account 3, 4, 5 months ago. Posted some stuff on it, but it's a real bummer because two plus years ago, we had a Michigan Football Report Instagram account with like 5,000 followers. It got taken away for inactivity or something like that. I don't know what happened, but we relaunched it. Took a couple months off from posting it when we weren't doing the show, but now we are back in action. 291 followers came from like the 2 shows we promoted on. We need 9 more followers to get to 300. I'll make you guys this deal. If we get to 300 let's just say by noon on Thursday, so, less than 24 hours from now, we see 9 more followers, I will take live calls. We'll put them on YouTube, but we'll use the Instagram account during the Michigan football season in our weekly show, and then post-game shows we'll give you guys on air with me. We'll do that using Instagram Live or the Instagram calling feature, so go follow us. Make sure you're part of that, and I make this promise to you guys. At one point over the next couple months, I will have a big-time story that we'll only put on the Instagram account. We'll make it private for a day, tell you guys about an inside scoop on Michigan football between now and, let's just say, the middle of fall camp. So make sure you go follow us. It's at Michigan Football Report on Instagram. As always, link down below, comments and description. I like this guy's name. Snapping necks and cutting checks at the chiropractic, Chiropractic 3. He says, what will Moore's offense look like? Are we spreading the field too? Get back to the question in a second. Ask you guys this question. You ask me questions, I ask you questions as well. Have you subscribed to the channel yet? Have you subscribed to this YouTube channel? If you have, type Y for yes. Let me know if you remember when did you subscribe and how you came across us in the first place. If not, type no. Be a man or woman. Man up and say, hey, look, I haven't yet. But then do it now. Press that subscribe button and share the video, the channel with your friends. YouTube.com/Michigan TV. Back to the question from Snapping Necks and Cashing Checks. What a name. It's tough to say, right? The good and the bad coming out of spring football was the bad is you didn't have Donovan Edwards and Blake Corum, right? But the good is maybe you developed backup running backs, third string, fourth string running backs that could pay off in 2024 and beyond, or if Edwards and Corum, who have both been injury riddled, right? Let's just be honest here, over their first collective 5 years in Ann Arbor. So JJ McCarthy got to spread the ball around, right? Focus more on the downfield passing game and some of the quarterback running game. I think JJ is going to have a breakout season this year. Here's my projected stats. You see on the left side of your screen is 2022 stats versus what I'm projecting for him in 2023. Now, I am just projecting this on a 14-game schedule, basically to have it line up. So if Michigan goes to the national championship, which they better, then I expect these numbers to go up a little bit. So we've got him throwing about 70 more passes through the same amount of games. And note that he didn't start in the first game last year, so he would have had a little dip there. So, just do quick math, about 5 more passes a game. He'll have about 600 more yards passing this year. I've got him jumping up from 22 to 31 touchdowns. Now, if you think, 3 touchdown passes versus Ohio State plus 1 on the ground, I think he had, 3 versus Purdue and then, 3 or 4 versus TCU. And so he was on a roll, right? He only had 14 or so touchdowns going into the, I think it was, 13 touchdowns, 12 touchdowns going into the Ohio State game. Added 10, 11 touchdowns in the last 3 games of the year. 5 interceptions last year. He'll throw more, still have more interceptions. I've got him at 221 yards, 222 basically, 322 yards per game this year. Should break the Michigan record for touchdowns in a season, and if he just has a very nice season, he will break John Navarro's single-season record right there in the 3,300 yards on a season. JJ McCarthy will this year. I'll ask you guys this question. How many touchdown passes will McCarthy have in 2023? Let me know what you guys are thinking. One more note, Jack, if we could back on the offense. Just want to give one more thought here on that question from my guy Snapping Necks and Cash and Shack. So answer the question, how many touchdown passes will JJ have? I'm saying 31. Michigan's reportedly, from the inside sources, the parents of players that I've talked to said, look, they understand what they have with JJ and Corum and Edwards all in the same backfield. I mean, just look at the Penn State game. That's really the only game that all three guys were really utilized the entire season. They were kind of sitting guys early on, injuries late in the year. Edwards was hurt, Corum was hurt. Penn State game, when Donovan Edwards still wasn't totally healthy, both guys ran for, 175 plus, is they understand that they need to get both these players, Edwards and Corum, on the field at the same time. What's going to make the difference for me is if this is a explosive offense, the likes we haven't seen at Michigan to rival, some of the best Alabama and Ohio State and Oklahoma offenses we've seen in the last decade, is can they put both those players in the field at the same time and not be predictable? What I mean by that? Edwards and Corum are on the field at the same time. Either it's going to be a counter to Corum, or they're going to rush Edwards out of the backfield and pass to him every single time, which we've seen happen with Jim Harbaugh offense is in the past. You got to get both at the same time, but keep the defense guessing. How about this question coming in from Ekim Noitiak? He says, does Josh Wallace start? Wallace, the 2.5-year starter from UMass, has 1 year of eligibility left with Michigan, coached by Don Brown last year. Hopefully he doesn't bring any of that to Ohio State 62-point mojo with him from Don Brown's defense. But Harbaugh's put it on the table, right? He said he's not promising anything. He said he'll definitely have the license and he's got the ability to compete for a starting spot. We will see how it shakes out. Look, I haven't seen Josh Wallace on campus competing with Michigan-level athletes, either the other guys on the defensive backfield or, of course, the wide receivers, backs, and tight ends he might face as a Michigan starting cornerback or contributing cornerback. But I like that Jim Harbaugh has, over the last 2 seasons, masterfully used the transfer portal as good as any coach in college football. Oluwatimi, just right there. This year, we're going to have guys contributing all over the field. Tight end, backup quarterback potentially, starting linebacker even, and then Josh Wallace there at cornerback. He'll compete, right? There's a lot of players that want to have that second cornerback spot. Hell, even maybe Mike Sanderstill will come out of the slot, nickel corner and be on the outside a little bit. But you've got a player with a ton of starting experience, every opportunity, and having one more player who can contribute in the secondary. We saw it last year with G-Mon Green, came out of nowhere in his 5th year, got a starting role, let Will Johnson get his feet wet. That is what Jim Harbaugh is doing excellent. And hell, Wallace, he just might be the missing piece to a national championship run for this Michigan football team. The Michigan Football Report must have been tweeted at by our intern, Billy. He says, will Donovan Edwards run for a 95-yard touchdown versus Ohio State in November? Oh, I love the Don. 75 yards. Donovan Edwards again, 85 yards. 2 huge touchdowns. 2 touchdowns? Right? 95 yards. Probably not. That might be the longest run in Michigan football history. But I think Michigan should give them the ball, right? If they get the ball inside the 5, hand the ball off to Donovan Edwards, the 5-yard line in the 4th quarter. Let him have a chance for it because those are still, of all the plays, it's kind of funny how you forget in a lot of ways about the 2021 game, right? You go back and you think about the plays. You think about McCarthy had that play, got in the game and made the pass. JJ had the run. Hassan Haskins, all those touchdowns, 5 touchdowns, the hurdle, Ojabo and Hutchinson and all the sacks and everything like that. But the plays from this past year, I know time is closer. It's only 7 months ago versus a year and a half ago. But man, those 2 Donovan Edwards runs, that Mike Sanderstill, tip away of the ball, the Cade Stover in the end zone in the 4th quarter, the interceptions, the 2 interceptions of Stroud in the 4th quarter. Those 2 Donovan Edwards runs, though, guys, just all time. I'll never forget them. I still play them in my mind 50 times a day and probably watch them at least each 5 or 10 times every single week. And that's why, dropped it. We're rolling out the Don t-shirt. Now, Donovan Edwards, I bought my son a official one that says Edwards on the back, Michigan football jersey a couple weeks ago. He's rocking it because he has now become, because I'm so obsessed with those runs, he watched them on TV with me. So I thought to toss this shirt out. We don't do merch much. We put out our own merch, the Don shirt. Go ahead and get one. It's chatsports.com/Don7. I'll tell you guys this. If we sell 1,000 of them, I will contact Edwards and say, hey, we made a couple grand here on these shirts, whatever it is. How do we donate some of this towards you? But right now, we've only sold about 100, so not necessarily worth contributing to that until we do so. Chatsports.com/Don7. Get yourself a the Don 7 shirt for this fall. Grayson Borg on Twitter says, will they add another wide receiver for depth? And if so, who? I don't think so, because as far as I know, and these rules are just murky and no one really understands. They changed them twice in the less 2 years since the transfer portal and NIL. These rules have changed multiple times. Is they didn't want the wild west for the transfer portal, so they had the post December, December into January period, the postseason transfer portal period. Then they had the April-May period that was up about a month plus ago. And so now, from my understanding, is any player who want to transfer now would have to sit out a season, unless I'm incorrect on that. But the way I read it is if they miss the window, they would have to sit out a season. But there's still a ton of players. This is what I think is the problem with the transfer portal. The college football transfer portal has a ton of players, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of players who had scholarships at big-time college football programs have not found a home. So maybe there's a player out there. But if not, Michigan needs some players to develop. We'll talk about that here in a second. But let me ask you guys this question. How would you grade our show? If you want to just on the merit of us as the content we put out, A, B, C, D, or F, or if you want to compare us on a weighted scale, compared to other shows or programs you watch on college football or shows, give me a grade A, B, C, D, or F. If you do anything other than a B, B+, I'd love to know what you think we could do to improve the show. I'm not just talking about this episode, but the entire totality of the Michigan Football Report. Let me know with a grade and some suggestions down in the comments. Michigan's got 3 receivers / tight ends and running backs that have decent production, right? This is nothing to sneeze at. This is like half a season for some Ohio State wide receivers over the past decade or so. Cornelius Johnson, 6 touchdowns. 2 of those were against Ohio State. And Roman Wilson, he had, 1 or 2? I think it was just 1 because of the terrible call by the refs against TCU. Colson Loveland, right? He wasn't even starting until the second or third last 3 or 4 games of the season, guys. Donovan Edwards also with 16 catches of his already have 18 catches, 16 catches, something like that. 16 catches, 200 yards for Edwards, 2 touchdowns for him. So somebody's got to step up here, all right? Michigan's got a handful of players who are true freshmen and sophomore. I think the obvious answers there are going to be Darius Clemens or Tyler Morris, the sophomore / redshirt freshman wide receivers for Michigan. Neither one of them got a ton of playing time last year. I did see Morris in the game against TCU in there, but one of these players has got to step up for Michigan, or I think Michigan's going to end up relying a little too much on the running game when they could pass a little bit more, or you might end up with 2 tight ends, out in the wide of the line, not up against the tackles. They'll be out wide in the line like they're big slot wide receivers. I don't think that's the best way to beat teams like Georgia and Ohio State, but that might be what Michigan has to do unless some of those younger players, Tyler Morris or Darius Clemens, steps up in their second year in Ann Arbor. Matt, Matt, don't want to take a shot at you. I'm sure you're a good guy, but you are what they call on Twitter, first name, a lot of numbers. Matt, first name, a lot of numbers. He says all the way to the national title. Fingers crossed. So, bad Twitter name, good tweet, though, from Matt, first name, a lot of numbers. Guys, it's Houston or bust. 100% Houston or bust. This is the best team Michigan has had returning a season in the last 40 years, or at least. I said last week, 2004 might have been rival there with star power like Ernest Shazer, Marlon Jackson, Braylon Edwards, and others. But they didn't have every single piece of the puzzle like this team does have coming back. 2007 with Manningham and Arrington and Henney and Hart and Jake Long and Sean Crable was probably missing a couple spots, a couple pieces of talent on the defensive line that year. Maybe need another guy in the secondary to go up against, obviously Oregon or Appalachian State, etc. This is the team with the least amount of holes. The kicker might be the biggest hole on this entire team. So for me, if this, they could lose a game in the regular season, but if they don't make the national championship game, at least make it. I will be just a little bit disappointed, although making it the college football playoff, beating Ohio State, can't really be too disappointed about that. Cortez, 304 in the house, he says, will we have 2 1,000-yard backs and a 3,300-yard passing, right? So you saw my prediction for JJ McCarthy. If he says we do, natty all day. I've got JJ McCarthy just over 3,300 yards passing. They almost did last year from the rushing perspective, right? With the huge game against Ohio State, 200 yards, and then being the man against Purdue and then against TCU. Gosh, think back to that TCU game. First drive of the game, Donovan Edwards breaks it off. You think he's going to break off another 80-yard run, 70-yard run. He got caught from behind. Think about how that game might have turned out differently. But I think yes. I mean, why wouldn't they have 2,000-yard rushers this year? So it comes down to JJ McCarthy. Can he maximize it in the passing game. One thing Michigan needs to do, guys, is they need to make sure that they get some stats for these players. Don't pull everybody out in the middle of the second quarter like you did the first 3 or 4 games of the season last year. Let JJ McCarthy, Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards, let them cook early on in the year. Keep them into the middle of the third quarter at least. Let them rack up some yards while the competition is rather paltry in the first 5 games. Whether Michigan wins the national title or not, whether we get 3,300 yards passing from JJ, 1,500 yards from Blake Corum, 1,600 yards all-purpose, 500, 600 receiving, 1,000 rushing from the Don, whatever it is, folks, enjoy this season because unless there's some sort of catastrophe and somebody goes down and it really ruins Michigan's chances, hopefully that doesn't happen, enjoy this season, everyone, except for the players. Don't you players enjoy anything? Get in the gym and work your ass off because you got talent to win the national championship, and you better make it to Houston. We'll see you guys there early January. It's Houston or bust. So I see you guys again with a video, I think tomorrow, maybe Friday. Go Blue.